We are continuing our list of top returning Georgia Bulldogs for the 2022 football season. This is based off of PFF grades from the 2021, and so this is not what Brent and I think about our personal feelings of these players or where we would rank them on the most important players in Georgia's team. This is just saying, as they were graded out from PFF, this is what our list goes down. We're up to number 18 on our list. A lot of returning Georgia Bulldogs that met our minimum criteria, Brent, of being graded 70 or higher and having a pretty good sample size of snaps. And the guy that we're about to talk about, we didn't know if he was going to be on this list, I'd say, 2 months ago?
Yes, it was very much up in the air, like you didn't think he was going to. I mean, I know Florida State sure thought that he was going to be on their list, not this list.
He popped over to Florida State's athletic department and got some kind of car, iPod, fight song, and some clapping from Mike Norvell, and turned around and said, Athens is pretty nice right now. So Amarius Mims returns to Georgia, and he comes in on our list here at number 18. You can see the previous features on the running list at the bottom. Those are over at our YouTube page, our UGA Sports YouTube page, and also on UGAsports.com. So let's talk about Amarius Mims, a really high recruit, 5-star out of Bleckley County, Georgia. Cochran, shout out. And when I watched his high school tape, and again, the body for an offensive lineman is exactly what you would design in a lab for a tackle, a 6'7", 300. And I'm not even sure if that's accurate anymore, frankly. He's really healthy, we'll put it that way, at offensive line. The only concern I had in watching his high school tape before he came to Georgia, Brent, was at the level of competition he played in the body that he had. Sometimes he played a bit top-heavy because he was so strong in his upper body. They didn't always use his legs. And I think on our tape that we'll see that Georgia's really challenged him in that regard.
Yeah, and it's much like Brock Vandegrift when he, coming in to that class as well, where it's, hey, you've played at a level where your physical traits are just so much better than anyone else that you compete against, that you can do things that no one on a football field can at that level. But yet those physical traits, by the way, are also way better than many humans that, especially for Mims, that exist on this earth. And he is, off the bus, or as Coach Donnan always says, off the hoof. Like, he is that and more. And the potential, the movement, the skills, the athleticism, we're going to see it all in these clips. But just like anything else, you got to go, like, you get to Georgia, you got to compete. And you got good players and veteran players who have been through, the Warren McClennans of the world, who at some point will show up on this list. And you got to beat them out. It's not going to be handed to you. And I think to me, it speaks volumes to what the kid wants and is about. That all right, I'm going to take a breath, take a step away. And then, he looks around and like, okay, this is where I need to be. And I think from a competitive standpoint, that's what you want to see. You want to see someone who says, all right, the best of the best is where I want to be. And I want to go compete and try to beat these guys out.
And if you look at tackles going into the 2021 season, you felt good that Jamari Salyer was going to be one, unless some reason he had to go inside, which you saw just a tinge of that. But for the most part, he was left tackle. Warren McClendon had secured right tackle and never yielded that. And then after that was Broderick Jones and Amarius Mims, kind of where would they fall in it as the young guys. Heading into 2022, Sawyer's gone. You still have McClendon over there at right tackle. Left tackle looks like it's Broderick Jones. And so that kind of leaves Amarius Mims. How do you find your playing time? And all I'll say is that Georgia has been pretty remarkably healthy at its tackle spots. And be ready, young man, because one twisted ankle, one knee, one unfortunate injury, that we've seen it at guard a lot in recent years, but that can happen at tackle. And Mims would be the first guy out there if he doesn't win the job over in camp, which is possible. He has that level of talent.
Yep, and it's good to see him there, and it's good to see him come back. And I think he's going to be that guy who the NFL potential is there. Now it's just about going and winning and getting it.
Now, I will say, as I pull up the game film that we have from Amarius Mims, this is all going to be in garbage time, cleanup time. There is not a lot to show in he hasn't played a whole lot at Georgia, frankly.
121 snaps this past season, 4 games with 15-plus snaps. So that was UAB, Vanderbilt, Missouri, and Charleston Southern. Only 2 of those games, Missouri and Charleston Southern, did he have more than 10 pass block snaps. So it's a limited sample size, but you can see the ability and athleticism in that limited sample size.
Limited sample size, and that's even with Georgia building up so many leads in a fourth quarter. So it's as maximum as it could be because Georgia's schedule and Georgia's talent in 2021. I would say in an average season, maybe with a total roster that's not quite as talented, you wouldn't be having the reserve offensive lineman in quite as often. And so he got more playing time than a lot of teams, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. And in the game that he played a lot against UAB, I think it was the most snaps he played in any game in the season. It's not like he went against stiffs.
Yeah.
Like UAB was actually legit along the defensive front, and we're going to show one clip a little bit later, but this first play is this is the blindside Michael Orr play in a way. It's like, oh, lock one. All right, let me just take you now and drive you 5 yards into the ground. And I remember watching him early on and thinking from a stance perspective, I always just kind of wondered how his stance was, but you watch him move and you see the feet, and there's certain things, especially from a pass block perspective that I think he's going to get better at. And there's a lot to learn. And we're going to show some of those things, but when you just talk about sheer size and power, there's plenty of that.
When you pause it at this frame, it looks like, oh, this is a bad day for Mims. Like lower half of the body's not following the upper half. And then he just becomes big old grown man, Bleckley County strength here. Like how he recovers from this spot to that.
And then as soon as that defensive end tries to make a play, he takes advantage, and then the momentum and the size takes over. Here, this is one against Tech where you see a little bit more of this is what you want to see. You want to see the ability to, one, engage there and then quickly get to the next level. Still a little high, but again, power and the ability to play in tiny spaces, quick feet, things like that.
He chips, releases, next level, like you said. Playing high was probably his bugaboo in high school. Like if he can, that's the case for a lot of great offensive linemen because it's easier to do when you're that much stronger than everyone when you're playing in high school. But to really maximize his pro potential, if he can really begin to play lower and use that leg strength that he has, I think it's going to maximize what he can be in terms of like a draft grade when that time comes for him.
Yep. And like you said earlier, the biggest thing with him, and and if you look at, when you talk about who might transfer out or go portaling out of Athens after spring, somebody, Darnell Washington's name got brought up. One of the quarterbacks' names, often get brought up. To me, he was the most important one to me that I didn't think they could lose of those names that were mentioned, just because, like you said, there is so much little footwork and pitter patter that's going on in and around the offensive line that you get one rolled up one ankle, one twist, and you're out for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And he is going to be, barring somebody beating him out, like he's going to be next in line to be a guy and be a player. And he's vital for a depth perspective for this team.
In saying that, a lot of people have said, well, if he's that talented, why can't he just play guard? And I'll tell you, it's because he's a tackle. Could he 100%. Play guard? Yeah, I'm sure he'd be okay at it. But he is a tackle, a college football tackle, a NFL tackle. That's his position. That's where he's going to be best at. And, frankly, he probably is going to end up being a great left tackle one day. But at the moment, Broderick Jones has secured that.
And you think about what Evan Neal just did at Alabama. He's the exception, not the rule. Yep. He is 100% the exception to play, left or right guard. I think maybe his freshman year, right tackle as a sophomore, left tackle as a junior, top 5 pick, top 10 pick. That's the exception. That's not the rule. Oftentimes those guys they're a left tackle from day one or they're a right tackle from day one, and that's where they are.
Yeah. I mean, no one was clamoring for Andrew Thomas to play guard. You know why? Because he was a tackle.
Right.
Done. Soapbox. Okay, done. Here we go. Back against UAB.
Yeah, and this is one where look at everybody else versus him. Like he's very slow off the snap. The ball is just an incomplete pass, but very slow off the snap. And this is where individual play from a PFF grading point perspective gets isolated. He gets his head down, sort of pulled in, the defensive end separates, beats him on the outside. It's neither here nor there. The ball's out, but he's beat.
I mean, the ball was going nowhere, but that was the pressure field. Yeah, like you're bigger than this guy, you're stronger than this guy. You got to stay in front of him.
And from a grading perspective, that impacts you. And that's when you look at and you see a 60.3 pass block grade. What you see is what you have in those, 38 pass block snaps that he had. You had a few sort of really good wins, but you also had a few losses that put you back into that sort of average 60, right around 60 grade.
Here's one of the bunch sets that I always think these challenge the offensive linemen a little bit because you're playing in such limited space to begin with. And so when Georgia brings it together and has so many guys so close to the football, your footwork has to be even more precise.
And oftentimes too, the defense is putting 4 or 5, a lot of extra numbers in and around that area. And it's like, okay, who's coming, who's not coming. But this is the one where you say, all right, yes, it was 28 snaps against UAB, and boom, he gets beat with an inside move quickly here. This guy that's beating them right there is not a stiff. That's Alex Wright, who was one of the highest graded defensive linemen in the sort of the group of 5 players, and was also just a 3rd round pick. So, and I think 6'7", 250. Like, so if you look, all right, this is one where Georgia's probably like, okay, young fella, you're not quite ready to go against some of these other guys, and keep working, keep getting better, keep improving this area. A little bit of outside of set, gets beat on the inside, doesn't cave him in. But again, you got to see him against some legit. It's not like you didn't get to see him against legit players.
I mean, you do see potential in him, right? So because watch how he kind of chops his feet to get where he wants to. Like that's what you train to do. Yep. He just got a little bit wide and a little bit more to the outside. And again, like you said, you're going to get beat by good edge rushers. It's going to happen. But it needs to happen with a little bit less frequency.
Well, and this is also an edge rusher too, who has the freedom to make that move.
Yeah.
Like if that's Georgia's defensive ends, they're not making that move. They're keeping you in the pocket. They're staying and keeping contained, and you're just pushing them outside. So, but again, the potential is there. But his return, to me, the biggest thing with his return is depth, because as much Warren McClendon, I think, has started 30-something straight games.
Yeah.
Like as much as that you sort of count on that, you're one turned ankle away from being in lineup. And I think, by the way, the other thing I think that will be interesting with Mims from a personnel standpoint is, when Jordan Davis would come in on the goal line situations, or Jalen Carter, it might be him. He might be that extra tight end. It might be, hey, we go him and Darnell and then another tight end. He might be that extra tight end. Like in the past, they've thrown jerseys on Alden Bynum and just other guys that end up being that extra a tight end number, but really is an offensive line. I think that could be a way to get him on the field.
Yeah. And I even look at it in terms of special teams of how did Jamari Salyer really become who he was? And part of it was he was one of the up men on punts. And you've seen that with Warren Erickson too. And a lot of that comes to the coach's trust that you can look across the field and diagnose what's happening and communicate. So if Mims really wants to take a next step, a lot of it for him is mental. Is like, what can you do to be a leader on this team? And at this point, he hasn't been charged with doing that. But those are the things that begin to separate you from the other players at your position. And as we've seen with Kirby Smart for a long time, if you want playing time on offense or defense, it kind of starts with special teams in a lot of places where you can.
And I think if he becomes that, hey, guy extra offensive line that goes and plays some tight end, what does that tell you? That tells you he's earning the playing time.
Yeah,
that's what you need to hear. That's what you need to see. That's what you need to hear. That he's earning it, because they're not going to play somebody who doesn't earn it. They've just won the 100%. They're playing it their way. They're not just going to give people anything. You're going to earn everything that you get at Georgia. That's always going to be the case with Kirby Smart being the head coach. If he's on the field, he's earning that time.
I do wonder if they get to the jumbo set that featured Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis is not there anymore, and there's not another Jordan Davis on the team. Do you look to a guy like Mims and say, hey, we can figure a spot for you here some way? We've seen it in G-Day, not this past G-Day, but the 2021. So who knows?
But big that he's returning, great for depth, and hopefully the kid just keeps getting better and better and really realizes all that potential that we see.
2021 G-Day. Let me correct myself on that. Hey, that's Amarius Mims. He comes in at number 18 on our list of top returning Georgia Bulldogs. And again, limited sample size with him. So based on talent, I think this is we'll see. and we'll see where he goes from here. All the potential in the world. I mean, body-wise, Brent, he could be a top 10 NFL pick. But you got to have that production somewhere.
Yep, 100%.
Thanks for watching what we're doing over here at UGAsports.com as we go through this list. Check out our YouTube channel, and then also go over to UGAsports.com where we are continuing this is recruiting season right now. I mean, Blaine Gilmer and
Jed May
and Trent Smallwood and Ben
on the vent.
Man, it's choppy over there. As we're recording this, I think Arch Manning is just now leaving town. So we'll see how this ends up. Maybe he commits to Georgia by the time we get done with this list, or maybe he doesn't. We'll all see. We'll leave that to the recruiting folks. We're analyzing the team that's on campus now. Maybe in future years, Arch Manning is one of those that we're doing on our countdown of top returning Bulldogs. We shall see. Thanks for following this series, and we will see you next time for number